Mayor Adams is due back in court this afternoon. His attorney is trying to get the federal bribery charge against him thrown out. It was late last month when the mayor was charged in a 5-count indictment accusing him of bribery, fraud, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations. The mayor has repeatedly denied the wrongdoing. His lawyers argue that federal prosecutors misunderstood the law when they charged him with bribery. They argue that they have no proof that Adams accepted travel perks from Turkish officials. Joining us this morning is criminal defense attorney Duncan Levin. Thank you for coming back in. We've talked about this case a lot, but it's back in the spotlight today.
Good morning, Pat. Thanks for having me.
The specific request here from the Adams legal team is on the bribery charge. What are they taking exception to?
Well, remember, there are two parts of this case. There's the bribery part, and then there's this other campaign finance part. This motion to dismiss deals only with the bribery part. And really, this stems from a series of Supreme Court rulings over the past several years that have sort of chipped away at government misconduct in the area of bribery and said there really needs to be a quid pro quo. The Supreme Court has held in some cases recently that a gratuity is not enough, so that if a politician got some kind of gift or money, it has to be tied to some sort of official action.
So we see all the counts up there. Taking away the bribery doesn't mean he's out of trouble.
No, it leaves a pretty significant part of the case, but then it's easier to defend one case than two cases. And what he would ultimately turn out to say is that on this campaign finance part, yes, there were straw donors. That is a normal part of a campaign, and he didn't know anything about it. He had nothing to do with the donations and didn't know that they were through straw donors. So it becomes easier to defend against it if it's just that.
We've talked about this before. This is a criminal case. So he can't just dispatch his lawyer to court today. The mayor has to be present for this.
Yeah, I mean, with some limited exceptions where a judge will allow a criminal defendant not to be present in court, criminal defendants come to court because they have to be apprised of every step of the prosecution against them. It's one of the constitutional requirements.
While we're on this topic, I want to ask you about this relationship between Donald Trump and Mayor Adams that we've seen emerging over the past week. There has been speculation that Adams wants to be on good footing in case Donald Trump is elected to become president again, and in case he is inclined to pardon the mayor. Let's not get into whether that's the real reason that the two of them have been talking about each other. But if that were to play out, does the pardon happen after a conviction? Does the pardon happen before a conviction? Could it be either?
There are a lot of ifs in this hypothetical here because Donald Trump has to be elected and a lot of things have to happen. But yeah, pardon can happen before a conviction. It doesn't have to wait until after a conviction. Most famously, that took place with President Nixon. And so there does not have to be a criminal conviction before a unilateral pardon by a president. So this can be something that he can be asking for even as the charges are pending. And by the way, there may be more charges that haven't even been brought yet.
I want to move on to the Daniel Penny trial. Jury selection was a slow process, and we heard from the jurors. A lot of them say they have had moments on the subway where they felt that there was someone that could have been a threat to them. The central argument in this case from the defense for Daniel Penny is that he took action in putting Jordan Neely in a chokehold, not because of some sort of aggression, but because of the opposite, that Neely was a threat to the passengers on the train. I think the central discussion in the legal arguments will be how much is too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is something where all the jurors have some experience, or most of them have some experience being on a subway train and being in the situation that prosecutors and defense attorneys are going to argue that the situation was either called for or did not call for his actions. The prosecution does not need to prove that he intentionally killed Mr. Neely. They just need to prove basically that Mr. Penny acted with unjustifiably and basically without any kind of substantial recognition of the danger of the chokehold that he was putting him in. This was a long chokehold. It was over 4 minutes. And so they're going to basically be arguing that it was just way too much well after that he could tell that Mr. Neely wasn't moving anymore. And he just went way beyond what was probably initially good intentions.
Does the prosecution approach this case differently because of the existence of that video clip?
100%. They've already acknowledged that he started out with good intentions and that at some point it turned negative and that he crossed a line and committed a crime. The videotape is evidence that the jurors can see, because otherwise you're listening to a lot of people on a subway train saying, I felt scared, I didn't feel scared. The jury is now allowed to use their own judgment because the tape can show, oh, well, I would have been scared myself.
And then on the other side, the defense will probably go to that tape, and there was one moment where other passengers are saying, you know, let him go. You've made the point, but the defense will argue that there was no moment when it was clear to him that the threat was over. It's a sort of evidence that both sides will try to work in their favor.
And that's honestly why we have a jury, because the jury is going to be the ultimate decision maker of what the facts are and whether what he did was objectively reasonable or whether he really acted with sort of conscious disregard for life. And so the jurors are going to use the tape, they're going to use the testimony from all the people on the subway, and they'll be able to use their common everyday experience. And the prosecution is going to say, you have been called to use all of your very common everyday experience on the subway and as a New Yorker to make a decision about what the right facts are here.
Covered a lot of ground here this morning. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. For more stories in your communities, click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV for the latest news and weather updates every 10 minutes and more. We'll see you then.